Hi everyone, it's Rachel back with the Shades of Orange. Today I'm here to do a book haul. I feel like this is pretty representative of the books that I like to read. I've got a horror book, science fiction, fantasy, and of course some thrillers. Let's get into the books. First, I've got to start with horror, and I actually only have one horror book in this haul. It is one I bought myself at a used book sale, and that is a copy of I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. If you saw my end of the year video, you know this is one of my favorite books. I actually read it on audio, but I loved it so much that I wanted a copy. So when I went to a used book sale in my area, I saw this for $1. Yes, it is a movie edition, but it's not the Will Smith movie edition. So I didn't mind it at all. I actually kind of like this cover. It's sort of spooky. And yeah, I just want to reread it. I really like collecting my favorites, which you'll see in this book haul. And this is one I definitely want to check out. If you somehow don't know the plot, it's about a man who believes he is the last person alive on Earth. There has been some kind of virus outbreak that has turned everyone into these vampire zombie-like creatures. And I just found it surprisingly haunting and creepy, and I just love the fact that the main character is such a skeptic. I've gushed about this book already, but I really loved it, and I'm really excited to have a copy in my collection, and even more excited that I got it for only $1 because I'm really cheap when it comes to buying books, which you'll see soon. Now I want to talk science fiction, and I bought myself a copy of Before Mars by Emma Newman. This is another book that made my favorites of the year, about a woman who is a scientist and an artist and goes to space, leaving behind her young daughter. So there's a mystery aspect to this book, but a lot of it really deals with the idea of a mother choosing to put her own career and her own wants and needs above that of her child. So very controversial. I absolutely loved it, and I definitely am going to reread this one. I had a gift card, so it paid for most of this book because books that are new in Canada are so expensive, but I think I ended up spending about 75 cents out of pocket because the gift card didn't quite cover the full cost of the book. But very glad to have this. I would actually like to get the rest of the Planetfall books, but this is my favorite of the three I've read so far, so I wanted to start by buying this one. And I also got two books to finish up a trilogy, and that is Ancillary Sword as well as Ancillary Mercy. These are the second and third books in the Imperial Raditz trilogy that of course starts with Ancillary Justice, which I have already read and loved. I've talked about it. It's about an AI ship that ends up in an individual body, and it is a bit of a revenge story. It's very detailed and complex, probably one of the more complex science fiction books I've read at this point. And because I loved it so much, but I found it a bit of a more complex read, I really wanted to get copies of these additional books. That way, if I was getting it from the library, you're kind of rushing through it, trying to make sure that you read the book before you have to return it. So this way, when I get to them, I can really take my time, go through them slowly and not rush. And because I love the first book so much, I've already bought that one in a previous haul I showed it. And I just really wanted to get the other books in the series so that I can have them on my shelf, because I see this whole trilogy being favorites of mine. So very glad to have these, and I have not read them yet as of filming. Probably be a little while just because my headspace is not really ready for something really dense like this, but it is here when I am ready for it. So very excited about this. And I have two fantasy books I want to mention. One is The Traitor Baru Cormorant by Seth Dickinson. And this is one that I also purchased with a gift card. I think I ended up spending maybe 25 cents out of pocket on this. And this is one of the few times that I actually bought a book before reading it. I saw it online for a really good sale, and I had watched a couple of reviews, particularly Thomas from SFF 180 did a review, and it just sounded like the kind of book I would really enjoy. It's about a woman who grows up in a society that was taken over not through military force, but through economic and social means, in which another country or place basically colonized her homeland, the terrible atrocities that happen. And then she grows up, becomes an accountant, and basically decides to take revenge and bring down this empire from the inside. And I actually have an accounting background. I went to commerce here in Canada, and I just love the idea of an accountant taking revenge. It sounded great. I watched several reviews and it just sounded really up my alley. So I did take a chance and I bought it before reading it, which like I said, I very rarely do because I'm very careful about where I spend my money on books. But thankfully this was a winner. I've already read it and really enjoyed it. It's definitely very dense. It is a little bit dry in the middle, but regardless, I ended up really enjoying it. I'll talk about it more in a review video if I haven't already, but this was one I really enjoyed. I look forward to reading the second book, hopefully soon. We'll see when that actually happens. So this was a winner for me, thankfully, and I'm really happy to have a beautiful hardcover for my shelves. And speaking of beautiful hardcovers, the other book is really hard to hold up, and that is The World of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin. This book came out a few years back and I wanted to get it, but it was large and expensive, but I did see it at a used bookstore in my area and I had store credit that covered it, so I decided to splurge and get it. I actually have not read it yet, but it looks beautiful on my coffee table. You often will see it in the background of this video because I often like put it on my fireplace and forget to take it off before I film. But I think most people are aware it's got like beautiful illustrations, and just like the book says, it goes through the history of the world. And it's also one that my husband has been interested in because he loves the world and is very interested in the history aspects of the Song of Ice and Fire series. While he hasn't read the books, he loves the TV show. So I could see him kind of going through this, and I'm always a fan of buying books that my husband might potentially read because he's not a big reader, but this is one I'm very happy to have, even though I haven't read it yet. Like I said, it looks gorgeous and I will get to it. I'll kind of probably slowly pick through it as I have time, but I'm gonna put this down now because it's really, really heavy. And finally, I want to talk about thrillers, and the three I'm going to be talking about are all books that I received unsolicited from Simon & Schuster Canada. They sent out a surprise package. They called it their Thriller Chronicles, and it was basically 3 new buzzy thrillers that are coming out, and I admit I actually knew nothing about them before they arrived in the mail. I had to look at the back, and they all came wrapped up in this really cool old-timey paper. So this first book was wrapped up and the title said There's No Place Like a New Home. And the book that was wrapped up in there was The Looker by Laura Sims. This is a debut novel about a woman who has just broken up from her previous relationship. She is childless, not by choice, and is just very unhappy, and she becomes obsessed with her neighbor, who I believe is an actress, and it's basically a story about her obsession. I really enjoy stories that have that obsession aspect to them, so this one actually has a lot of potential for me. It gives me similar ideas to The Typist by Suzanne Rindle, which was another book I really enjoyed. So it's quite short. I could see myself really enjoying this one, so it's definitely piqued my interest, and while I hadn't heard about it before, it is one that I do plan on reading. And the second book I got from Simon & Schuster Canada came in a package that said Drummondville Rocked by Murder of Local Girl. And the book that was attached to that was 7 Days by Patrick Senecal, if I'm not butchering that name. And this is about a man whose daughter was brutally murdered, and he decides to seek revenge on the man who perpetrated the crime by kidnapping him and punishing him. I do have a soft spot for stories that involve vigilantes, just taking justice into their own hand. And more so, you know me, I have a strange fascination with kidnapping stories, especially when they're kind of told from people who are not necessarily great in and of themselves. Obviously, our main character is not the most stand-up individual if he's taking the law into his own hands. So this one has some potential. It's probably going to be a really fast thrillery read. And again, it's not like super long. I find a lot of thrillers are on the shorter side these days, which I don't mind. I actually prefer shorter thrillers. I don't know about you, but this is another one I'm going to check out, and I'll let you know what I think about it. And the last thriller in that set was wrapped up in a package that said Child Disappears from School Fair. And the corresponding book, if you can guess, is Her One Mistake by Heidi Parks. And this is about a woman who was at a school fair with her children and her best friend's daughter. And she looks away for a minute, the children disappear, she finds them, except for her best friend's daughter, who is still missing. And it basically deals with her grief as she has to tell her friend what happened, and then things spiral from there. It sounds like she stops trusting anyone and just really goes and spirals downwards. Of the three, this one probably sounds least like the kind of book I would pick up on my own, just because I feel like there's been a surplus of these books about missing children, especially like, I think I've read a couple books that are about like a missing child that is like their best friend's child, and this one just doesn't sound particularly original, but maybe I'm wrong. I would love to know, of the three books I got for review, which one would you like me to prioritize? Maybe I'll do a separate review for that or include it in a wrap-up video. But I'm definitely interested in trying all three, but love to know kind of which one I should maybe read first, and do let me know in the comments down below. And finally, I want to mention one more book, which isn't technically a thriller, but I'm going to throw it in the end of this video anyway, and that is On the Island by Tracy Garvis Grace. This is one I read a couple years back and really enjoyed, so I wanted my own copy. I saw it at a used book sale for $2, and I couldn't resist getting a copy. So this is about a teacher who is going with a student on a plane when their plane goes down. And this teacher, I should mention, is in her 20s, and that student is about 17. And they basically get stuck on this island. So it's partially a survival story, how they're able to get food and water and what they try to do to get off the island. But at the same time, it has a romantic element because they do develop feelings for each other because they are the only two people there. But he is, of course, underage, which creates this great taboo student-teacher relationship, and I really enjoyed it. I just found it very addicting. I read it when I went on a plane trip, which probably wasn't the best idea because the book starts out with a plane crashing, but regardless, it is one that I enjoyed quite a bit. A little bit off my brand. It's not really the kind of book I normally talk about on my channel, but I really do enjoy this one, so if you thought about picking it up, I do personally recommend it, and I'm happy to have a copy because I will reread it. So that's it for this book haul. Love to know down below which books I should prioritize reading of the ones that I haven't yet, especially the thrillers. I'd love to know which one I should do a review for. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.